So what we're looking at today is a framework that I use on myself every day. And I use it to coach clients. I teach it. It has transformed my life and hundreds of other lives. I've seen this happen with people that I know, people that I coach, and just people that I talk to that use this framework. It's a tool that's based on a bunch of different theories and a bunch of different schools of thought. So it sort of combines schools of thought from thought leaders in business, in spirituality, in neuroscience, and in cognitive science and behavioral psychology. And basically, it's all aimed at the same thing, which is to develop awareness around our unconscious, subconscious patterns that are happening, generating awareness there and understanding how all of those thoughts are spinning without our permission, guiding our thoughts, guiding our feelings, which ultimately guide our behaviors and create the results we have in our life. I love this framework, y'all, so much because it works for everyone. If you are trying to change your own habits in your life, it works. If you're trying to lead a company, it works. It works for CEOs. It works for my mom, for my kids. It works for stay-at-home parents. No matter what it is, either something that's going on that's a challenge for you or a goal that you want to accomplish in your life, this applies to it all. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to teach you this tool, this framework, and then you will have a chance to workshop it for yourself. And I'll give you a little coaching about that. So let's go. There are 5 parts to this tool, and we are going to start with reviewing it. So if you have that worksheet up, you can raise your hand too. There's a function where you can digitally raise your hand. And if you don't have that worksheet, let me know. I can send it out in the chat again. And what we're going to do right now is look at what this framework is. So the first part of this framework, the first component, is called a circumstance. And I have this up here. So a circumstance is a fact that is happening out there in the world. Circumstances are things that we have no control over. I see someone still needs this handout, so I am going to take just a second to make sure that I chat it out. If you open up the chat, my friends, I will give you 2 versions of this. One is a PDF, and the other one is a Google Doc, and I'll put them both in there. So you can have either one. All right. So the first thing is a circumstance. Circumstances happen out in the world and we can't control them. So the past is an example of a circumstance. The past has no power over us until we have a thought about it. Things that other people say, other people said, other people did, none of those have any power over us until we have a thought about it. Whatever we have said or done in the past, it's true, y'all. None of that matters. None of it has any power over us until we have a thought about it. Other things that are circumstances, which is the first line of this model, are things like the weather, things that are happening out there in the world. The news is a circumstance. A circumstance is something that everyone would agree on 100% of the time. So it would be provable in a court of law and everyone would agree on it. So in the chat, why don't you share some things, other examples of what a circumstance might be? So examples might be the floor is cement, or we are on a Zoom call, or Thanksgiving is on Thursday. I'm the only one that can see your chat, so put some more in there. Oh, great. Yes. My sister is going to be at Thanksgiving. Today is Friday. Excellent. Yes, so there are things that are 100% true no matter who is there, no matter who's looking at the thing, no matter who is assessing it. These are 100% true. So we want to think about this circumstance as the first line in our tool. Now, when a circumstance happens in our life or out in the world, we're going to have a thought about it. We have over 60,000 thoughts a day, and 95% of those thoughts are automatic. So when we have a thought, we want to think about this as a sentence in our mind. We have 60,000 of those over that, right? A day, thoughts in our mind, sentences in our mind happening over and over again. So when we have a thought, we can identify the difference between a circumstance, which is a fact, and a thought, which is a sentence in our mind. And that is the most important part of what we're doing today, is really separating out of those two, because we confuse them a lot. So the way that you can tell that a thought is if it has any descriptors or adjectives in it, any little words that are coloring the fact. And oftentimes we confuse these two, right? So things that we confuse are, I'm so busy. We think of that as a fact. Or I have really different priorities than my partner. We think of that as a fact. Those are just thoughts. And you can tell because they have an adjective, busy or different, right? This is really great news, because that means that we have agency over anything happening in our mind, right? Nothing can cause us pain until we have a thought about it. Because this is such an important part of our work, I want us to do a little playing with this, okay? So I want your participation here. Put into the chat, what are some thoughts that you have in your mind that you think of as facts, or that you might think of as facts? So again, some examples of this might be, my partner and I have really different priorities. I'm just too busy. The holidays are going to be a shit show. My mother-in-law can't stand me. What other things can you put in the chat that are examples of thoughts that you might accidentally confuse with facts? Put them in the chat. I'm not a good cook. That is a great one. Or I am an excellent cook, right? We think of that as a fact. The holidays are going to be a shit show. Yeah, I've heard this a couple times from people that we're just thinking this is going to be a hot mess. And that's just a fact, because it always is. But this is really just a thought that's happening in our mind. So again, you get it, but really think about this for yourself. What are the things that are thoughts that you're treating as facts? Okay. So when you choose to have a thought about something, this leads us to our third line in our tool here. There's our facts, our circumstances, our thoughts. We have a thought about a circumstance that happens out in the world. And every time we have a thought, it generates a feeling in our body. So a feeling is, for our purposes, a one-word emotion. Think of some examples and put them in the chat of a one-word emotion. This could be sad, frustrated, confused, angry, joyful, happy, silly could even be an emotion. Joy is definitely emotion. So whenever a circumstance is happening in the world, we have a thought about it and it brings a feeling into our body. Something that I'd like to share here, someone's putting happy in the chat, someone's putting confused. Something I want to share here is that there's a distinction we can make. A sensation starts in the body and goes to the mind, like cold or hunger. An emotion starts in the mind and goes to the body. So you have a thought and it generates an emotion that becomes a vibration you feel in your body. All right. And then next is number 4, the fourth line. When you have a feeling, you take action from that feeling every single time. So let's think for an example. Picture yourself at the holidays. Let's say, and picture yourself being in a state of calm. And think of what actions you would take from a state of calm. And let's take the example of like let's say someone shows up really late to the holiday. If you are calm, for example, you might get curious and say like, hey, are you okay? Or what happened? Or make a joke, maybe even depending on your personality, right? You might approach it in different ways, or you might just say, hey, come on in. I know it's hard to be late. You might have some empathy there. You might say, can I grab you a plate, right? Now, how might you act if that person shows up to the event when your feeling is anger? You might not look at them. You might not make eye contact with them, right? Your actions will be very different. You might be literally short with them. Again, it depends on your personality and how you'd act, but your actions will look very different if you are depending on what feeling you have. And then the last line in our tool here is that when you have an action, that always creates your result. Always. So that result in someone showing up late to the holiday, right? If we're angry and we act short or we ignore the person, then whatever that thought was, that it was rude that they were late, we're probably going to be rude to them. And if we're calm, we will have a connection with them. That result will always be related to what actions you take. So that's it. That is the tool. I'm going to recap it again. Circumstances are facts that are happening in the world around us all the time. We have a thought about all of those facts, and those thoughts usually are automatic. When we have a thought about a circumstance, then it generates a feeling in our body, one word, emotion. Out of that feeling, we take action, which always gives us a result. We can apply this tool to big things that are happening in our life or little small moments like someone coming late to a holiday. And the magic of this, my friends, and this is the part you should listen to. Well, you should listen to all of it. But this is the magic sauce right here. Your result always proves your thought. Boom. Every time. That could happen in a way where you're literally proving the thought or where you're projecting it onto someone else. So an example of this might be if your thought is that you're too busy, you look at the holidays, you're like, there's so much to do. I'm too busy. There's too much to do. I'm not going to get it done. You'll have a feeling of overwhelmed. And out of that feeling of overwhelmed, you will probably do the thing in front of you, be really reactive, or maybe do nothing at all because you stay in a state of overwhelm, and you'll keep yourself too busy and you'll keep yourself with too much to do. That's an example. Okay. Another example I want to share with you is that if the thought is that person is so rude for being late, you will end up being rude to them or being rude to yourself. So when the thought is about someone else, you usually either do it to them or you do it to yourself. So that is our model. And now I am going to have you practice it. And I'm going to need you to participate in this part. So think about something that's going on for you right now. It can be something horrible, wonderful, anything. It could be related to the holidays. And write it down in just a sentence or two. I'll give you just a minute for that. I'm going to turn off my heater while you're doing that. All right, when you've got that sentence, in just a moment, I'm going to have you categorize it as either a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, or a result. And this is going to get you to be able to use the model, which is where we'll end our session today. But first, I'd like to do a little practice together. So I'd like you to use the chat and tell me for each one of these, which one is the sentence that I'm saying? Is it a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, or a result? Here's the first one. We are in the Mind Bloom Mastermind. What is that? Which one of the 5 is that? Right. It's a circumstance. It's a fact. What about groceries for Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving were expensive this year? What is that? Nice. It was a thought. Exactly. That's one that we might confuse with circumstance. Another one that I hear people confuse a lot is taxes are expensive. Taxes are high. A house is expensive. Cost sometimes we think is a fact when it's actually a thought. What about my trip up to the Bay Area was smooth and easy? Which one is that? Awesome. Yes, it's a thought. Excellent. It could also be a result. Your results are sometimes thoughts, right? Because they're proving them. What about that holiday gathering was so much fun? Yes, thought. Awesome. And then lastly, I feel so stressed out this week. What is that one? Yes, it's a feeling. Awesome. Y'all are too good. All right. So now categorize whatever you came up with in your 1 or 2 sentences for what's going on with you and categorize it as one of these 5 things. Okay. Take your own example and figure out what it is. And now you're going to do a model. So you're going to practice using this tool, and we'll do an example first, and then you'll do your own model, and then I'll hear what came up for you. So our example here about the holidays is going to be this. We have a holiday gathering, okay? And just look at the top section here. Your thought is it's going to be a hot mess. So put in the chat, if there's the holiday gathering and your thought about it is that it's going to be a hot mess, when you're thinking that thought, what's a one-word emotion you'll probably feel? Awesome. Dread. We'll use that one. I see dread. I see anxiety. I see anger. I would probably go more with like dread, something like frustration. I see. Okay. Now, if you're thinking about the holiday gathering and you're thinking that it's going to be a hot mess and you're feeling dread, how might you act at the gathering? Or sorry, before the gathering too. Either way, it's going to be a hot mess. How might you act? When you're thinking about how might you act, you're going to think of things you'll do and things you won't do. What actions will you take? And how will you stay in inaction? Some examples of this might be, if we're in dread because it's going to be a hot mess, we might get there late. Maybe we're the ones that get there late, right? Arrive late because we don't want to be there. Maybe we avoid thinking about it at all. We're not looking forward to it. Yeah. Okay. So this is an example. What you just said, not looking forward to it, is an example of finding evidence for how it's going to be a hot mess. So you think more and more about all the ways that it's going to be a hot mess. So you reinforce your idea over and over again. Okay. You arrive late, and then let's see. So you kind of avoid thinking about it, which might mean avoid planning for it, right? You're like doing anything other than thinking about that event. Maybe, do you get really excited about what you're going to cook and bring? Do you start texting people ahead of time and say, can't wait to see you. What are we wearing? To get all goofy and connect with people? Probably not, right? You might isolate. You might not be able to sleep at night if it's a really stressful thing for you. You might pick up some food last minute and not really think about it. You might, when you get there, immediately focus on the things that are a hot mess. So this is the thing I see the most. When you get there, you immediately focus in on how people are arguing. And then you get frustrated, you leave and go in the other room. Or you see how the dinner's going to be late, and then you just go sit on the couch. So you reinforce that idea in the moment. And then, of course, what happens is, because you get there late, because you're focusing on the things that are not going well, because you are dreading it, heading up to it, it feels like a hot mess. You create a hot mess. Now, what if you're thinking about the holiday gathering, your thought is, I'm going to enjoy the little things, which is something you could believe and you could do, right? It's not like you're changing your thought to, this is going to be the best holiday of my life, right? You're not faking it. You're just thinking about, okay, well, how can I find joy in this? What feeling might come in your body if you're thinking, I'm going to enjoy the little things? Great peace, joy, curiosity. Awesome. Ease. All right. So if we're feeling ease, take that last one. I'm going to enjoy the little things, and we're feeling ease. How might we act in those same ways? I'm going to say, put some thoughts in there, and I'm going to start us off. Instead of avoiding planning, we might be like, oh, what am I excited about making? I'm going to have fun with it. So we might enjoy the process of getting ready. What do I want to wear that I'm going to feel awesome in? Instead of, I don't even care what I'm going to wear because it's going to be a hot mess anyways, right? What else might we do when we show up? Instead of looking for all of the ways that it already is a hot mess, what might we look for if we're focused on enjoying the little things? Yes, little things that bring us joy. Exactly. Yes, we might like focus in on one conversation that brings us so much joy. We might look at these small things, that are popping up around us that pique our interest. Maybe instead of throwing our hands up and going and sitting on the couch, we like pull someone aside and go for a little walk outside if the dinner's late. If someone comes in late, if we are enjoying the little things, we might laugh about it, right? Instead of getting frustrated. We might, I see people saying you actually enjoy the meal. Yeah. Yeah. And oh my gosh, that's so brilliant, right? So instead of instead of sitting there, this happens so much, right? Instead of sitting there thinking as you're eating, thinking about what a hot mess it is, and you miss the whole meal, right? How often do we do that stuff, right? We're so up here that we don't even experience the thing that we're there for. If you're enjoying the little things, you might actually taste the food, y'all. Amazing. And enjoy these little conversations, actually be present for this beautiful event. Yes, see the best in the usual bad. So those are all thoughts, right? But like you might actually look for things that you like. And then the result of that, so those are all actions. I'm not going to write them all out, but the result is you enjoy the little things, right? That ends up being your result. Joy and joy. All right. So my friends, now I'm going to give you a chance to practice, and please put your questions in the chat as you do this. What I'd like you to do is either take that example of the 1 or 2 sentences that you wrote down, that's something that's going on for you. Okay. So either take that example and play with it and put it into a model. So you're going to put it into this 5-part model to see what you are creating with your thought around the holidays. Okay. In order to do this, I want to give you a couple of specific tips. The first one is you are looking at a snapshot of your mind. When I said that you have 60,000 thoughts every day, you're looking at one of them. So you want to make sure you stay in that one snapshot in order to really get the power out of this work. So if you're looking at a holiday gathering, the question that you'll ask yourself is, what am I thinking about it? Okay, it's going to be a hot mess. When I'm thinking, the question you ask is, when I'm thinking it's going to be a hot mess at the holiday gathering, what do I feel when I'm thinking that? Then you ask yourself, when I'm thinking it's going to be a hot mess and I'm feeling dread, how do I act? Okay, so you really want to focus in on lots of actions and inactions when you're feeling dread, not later on when you're over it and you're being hard on yourself for feeling dread, but in that moment when you're feeling the dread. Okay. So really ask yourself those questions. And the other thing I just want to offer here is not to be hard on yourself. Have curiosity, have fun with this, right? Our human brains are designed to do this shit right here, to be negative and to look for all the things that are going wrong. So don't think there's something wrong with you, because there's not. This is what we're designed to do. There's something right with you if your brain is working like this, but there's a lot more freedom and power when you start to notice it. Okay. So do that model and chat your questions to me. One more thing I want to say is that remember that you can sort of test your model, because the result always proves the thought. So when you finish doing the 5 lines, if the result does not prove the thought in some way, you're probably mixing up the snapshot. So put those questions in the chat and I will help you with it. We have people joining from cars, trying to practice and also type comments. if you're participating from a car, you can do a model in your head by just looking at that snapshot. And an example would be just to think, what is that thought? If you can't, you can either think, what is that thought creating as a feeling? And then what's that feeling created in, like, how am I acting when I feel that feeling and what are the results? You can just run through that in your head in the car and look at it. And if that's too much, if you kind of get lost in that model, then you can just look at what's the thought I'm thinking and how am I seeing it show up? How am I seeing it actually showing up in my life, in the world around me? Whatever is valuable to you. Hearing that there are lots of feelings that you've got in your heads. If you just focus in on one feeling that you have, you can start there. So if the feeling is dread, you can say, what thought is giving me a feeling of dread? And if I'm hearing a couple of people saying that it's kind of like hard to choose. All roads lead to Rome. You don't have to choose the most powerful thought. You can do this all day long if you want. You can do 20 models a day. You can do this on any thought that you have, any feeling that you have. Just choose one, and it can be a light one. It doesn't have to be a heavy one. The power is just generating awareness around what you're creating and how your mind is working. So pop in questions if you have them. And then if anybody, questions about your specific model. And while you do, I am going to share a couple more thoughts. So a lot of people, when they start this work, like I said, they will see all these negative thoughts and negative feelings, and they get really hard on themselves. And that is the opposite of what I recommend. Bring full on compassion, like you're talking to a kid, because they have all these negative thoughts too. Okay. It's what our brains are designed to do. So just real compassionate, real curious, and kind of some humor helps me. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at what my brain is doing. I am creating that I'm left out, for example, by thinking that I'm left out, or I'm creating that it's a shit show by thinking it's a shit show. And just really watching it with compassion and love and knowing that that's what's supposed to happen is the best place to start. Now, the other thing that happens with folks when they first start trying this work is they immediately want to change this. They want to get out of this. If you're driving in a car, they want to get out of the first model that's causing them pain and change their thought right away to something that feels better. That isn't the power of the work either. The most important thing to do is be aware of what your mind is creating and feel that feeling that's there from it. Feel the dread instead of trying to avoid it. And just be aware that the dread is there because of a thought that you're having and that you have some choice there. And if you want to change it, it only works if you fully believe the thought. And that's why instead of saying the holidays are going to be a shit show, you don't want to give that up and instead say, this is going to be the most spectacular holiday of my life, because you won't believe it, right? But if you choose instead a thought that's just one step closer, like it may be a hot mess, but I can handle it. Or there's going to be a hot mess all around me and I'm going to be an island of peace in the middle of it. Or this hot mess is going to help me learn something about myself. Whatever it is that's believable for you, that gives you a little bit more power. Switch a little bit when you can believe it. And then you can take little baby steps from there. I'm seeing a question in here. I'm worried about my own action when I'm making the meal and I want it to be so pretty and I end up being not as warm as I want to be, and I feel bad later for not being as present and laid back as I want to be. I have heard this from like 3 different people lately about how they want to set up their table or what they want their food to be like. And even though they love putting on a party or love cooking a meal, they get into such a perfectionist mode that then they don't enjoy it very much, or they feel shame afterwards, which is like a net negative all around, right? Like if you number one are not present because you want the cooking to be so perfect, and then afterwards you feel shame for not being present, and then you feel frustrated that you spent time feeling shame and feeling perfectionism, it just all stacks up, right? And you can see the ripples of that for yourself and for the people around you. So what you want to look at is, before you get into cooking, in this example, what's a thought that you want? I'm seeing some, yes, that's exactly what happens. What's a thought that you can have about the cooking instead? So really spend some time thinking, if I want this to be perfect, what's the feeling that's going to come? So if I need it to be perfect, maybe the feeling is going to be control or like anxiety or something there, right? And then the actions are that you're not present, and then the food is perfect, but the experience itself you kind of miss. Just spend some time and thinking about what that's like for you, and then think about what you would like instead. So what's the result you would like instead? If the result is to be relaxed and enjoy the food, for example, work backwards up the model. Okay. So if it's to enjoy the food and be relaxed, maybe your actions, you have to look at what actions you'd need to take in order to have that result. So some examples might be, I'm only going to give myself 2 hours to cook it, and whatever comes out of that time is what it's going to be. Or some other actions might be, I'm going to make 2 dishes and ask other people to bring some of the other ones. Or instead of the 8 dishes I want to make, I'm going to make 4 so that I can actually enjoy the meal, and I'm going to buy 2 of them. Or it will be that you're going to let it be imperfect, that you're actually going to let the presentation, you're going to give yourself 2 pieces of the meal that you're going to allow to be gorgeous with all kinds of garnish and amazingness. And the other ones are going to be less than perfect. So understand what the actions are that would give you the result that you want. Then ask yourself, how would I need to be feeling in order to act like that? So the feeling might again be ease. Okay. Or like relaxed. What would you need to be thinking to feel relaxed about the meal? And maybe that thought, it has to be yours. I can't put words in your mind, but maybe the thought is, it's more important to me to be with my family than to make a perfect meal. They want me more than anything anyways. I want to show up for them, something in that realm. Whatever that thought is for you, practice it. Right before you go into making the meal, practice thinking that thought. If it's more about the holidays being stressful and a shit show and drama, practice the thought, I have control over me. I don't have control over anything else. My thought that I'm going to practice right before I go in to the holiday is, I can be an island of peace in all of this madness around me. And then practice it over and over. You can write it down on a Post-it note. You can put it in your phone and it can pop up in a calendar event over and over. You can just write it down in a notebook or your calendar that you look at every day, anywhere, Post-it note on your mirror, wherever you want. A lot of people will write things down on a piece of paper and put it right by their bed, and they read it every morning when they wake up. Or if it's about a specific event, they read it right before the event. So practice it over and over. That is what I've got for you today. Unless anybody else has any questions, I do want to say 2 more things. If you love this work, please schedule a consult with me and we can do more of this work together. I have a link in the same place. In the same place where you signed up for this event. And we can sign up for a coaching package together and do more coaching together. And then also, if you need a tool to use and you really like doing this work, what I recommend is doing a thought download every morning. What that sounds like is writing down all of the thoughts in your head to fill a whole page in the morning. Then you look at a few of those thoughts. I usually do about 5 that are not serving you, that you want to look at. They could be serving you, they could be not, but you want to look at them and then do a model around those 5 thoughts. Okay. So what are the thoughts creating in your life? And when you do that thought download in the morning, every morning, and then you underline the thoughts that you want to look at and you make models out of them, if you do that every day for a week, you will feel like a different person. If you do it every day for a month, you will start to become a different person. And if you just do it every day, ongoing, you really start to just transform yourself as a human being and transform what you're capable of. Clearly, I believe in this work so much, and I really believe that it can not just change your holiday, but change your life. So please let me know, schedule a consult with me if you'd like to do more of this work. And thank you so much for being here. I know that if you use this tool, you can have a fantastic holiday, or at least have a little bit more power and ease and grace in the one that you're choosing to create. Take care of yourselves. So much love. Bye, everybody.